So I'll just go ahead and share my screen. Please let me know once you can see the screen. Alright. Okay. So now if you look over here, this is the majority of the administration course that we're gonna cover up. Okay. So from the admin perspective, what about the activities that could be done? Like setting up the environment, then setting up the user page, the user groups, the accesses, pertaining from the securities, like okay, which user will have what kind of an access to the environment. Then we need to understand how we can get the security filters. Like when you log in into the MicroStrategy, every user will have a different conditions based on which they need to see the data. So it's not only about the restriction for, with respect to the access. Even there is some kind of a security which we can apply it, and based on the user login, they would be able to see the data. Administration tasks, and we are going to definitely discuss everything in detail during the entire course. So we have the caches, we have how we can create the schedules and the subscriptions, and there are various other administration tools. We have like object manager, integrity manager, system manager, command manager, enterprise manager. These are all other components which just comes along with the MicroStrategy, which performs various admin related activities. So now if in case you want to have as a developer, you have made the changes or you have created some reports or dashboards in one environment, and you want to just get it migrated from the dev to the QA or to the production environment. Object Manager is a tool which will help you to migrate the objects across the environment. Now if in case you want to have the statistics to be collected, like let's say what are the activities which have been performed within my environment, like which are the users who are accessing the which kind of reports, what is the average execution time of each of my report, and so on. So there are a lot of statistics that can be collected around the environment, and for same we have something called as Enterprise Manager. So we're going to definitely discuss each and every admin tool which does comes along with the MicroStrategy. We will even discuss about how we can perform an upgradation activity. Let's say you are working on version 9.x and you want to get it upgraded to 10.x. We are even going to discuss on that particular topic. I can give you a short demo where I can get the metadata of 9.x and we will try to get it upgraded to 10.x, and we will see whether that does it works perfectly or not. So we're even going to discuss about the metadata upgradation, the MicroStrategy version upgradation, and we're going to see everything as a practically implemented. As we already know that within the MicroStrategy we have something called as iServer or the web server components. So don't worry, we're going to discuss each and everything starting from the startup, like starting how we can do a setup entire environment, and what are the other configuration settings that we need to take care of. There's also something called as MicroStrategy Office, like we have a plugin which can be embedded within the Microsoft products like Excel, Word, or the PowerPoint. So whenever you're creating such Microsoft documents, from there itself you can access the MicroStrategy reports. So now let's say for an example, you need to prepare a presentation. Okay, you need to prepare a presentation where you need a real-time data. So I don't want every time to modify my presentation and I update it with some real-time data. Instead, I will integrate it with the MicroStrategy. Okay, so within the PowerPoint itself, I'm going to embed the MicroStrategy documents or MicroStrategy reports. So every time I refresh, my number gets updated and my PowerPoint is up to date with the recent information. So by this, you just have to create the report once and it's always going to show you the updated data. The last and not the least, but we're also going to discuss about the mobile configuration. As of you know that the MicroStrategy mobile is something which is real USP of MicroStrategy, and we will make sure that we even discuss on that how we can do the configuration and how the user can really access the MicroStrategy via its mobile device like iPad, iPhone, Android device, and so on. So this is at very high level that I have just went through the content, the topics that we're going to definitely cover up during our entire course. I'll just take a pause over here. Any questions so far? No? Okay. Now, okay, I have a question over here. That's with respect to the SDK. Okay, it says the question is that will you talk about the SDK? The SDK is something which requires the coding skills, to be very honest. Okay, so I'm not sure. That depends on what your web server has been deployed. Okay, it could be like you could be using the Java or the .NET. So whenever we say the SDK part, it's we really need a good the coding skills. But what SDK does, I can definitely discuss during the training, but we will not be able to develop any code as such, because for that I really do need some expertise who has knowledge on .NET or the Java. What are the things that you can do in SDK? I can give you in brief explanations around, but just an overview. Definitely we can cover it up, but not much in detail. Does it answer your query, Sandhya? Okay, perfect. Okay, so as of now, these are the topics that we're going to definitely cover it up. I'm not so sure that how many you would have attended my previous trainings, but yes, what I can really discuss today is something like how we can set up the various users, what are the user roles, and how you can give the access to its various environment. So now when I go back to the MicroStrategy desktop, okay, please feel free to interrupt me if in case you have if I have any question or anything that you want to discuss it out. Okay, because I don't know, I couldn't hear anyone from your end, so I'm really not so sure that whether you guys have any question or not. Please feel free to let me know, and you can even just drop your message under the chat window. Alright, now this is the MicroStrategy project source, as we already know. I'm just going to log in into the MicroStrategy. Now, the basic functionality, the very important functionality of a MicroStrategy admin is to set up the environment. Okay, we know this is just for a demo perspective. Don't worry, I'm going to still show you how to configure the metadata, how to configure the project source, how we can create the connectivity between them, how we can create multiple projects, and how we can point our required projects to the warehouse. So it's still going to be covered up during this particular training, but for today, I'm just going to discuss very quickly about the user setup, nothing else. But once we start with the actual training, we're going to start it from the scratch again, where we have our environment and we will perform all the activities that as a MicroStrategy admin guy has to do it. Okay, so now let's say this is my environment which has already been set it up. If we really look over here, there is something called as the administration tab, and this is specifically available to the MicroStrategy administration. If in case you're working as an architect or a developer, you will not have access to the administration over here. Now let's come back to the user manager setup. Now I have this environment and I really need to get some users onboarded over here. The best way to do is over here, just go to the user manager and you will find various user groups or the users. When I say a user group, it's just the folder under which you can add as many users as you want, and each of those user will have the same privileges what you have defined at the user group level. So now let's say you have 10 projects in your project source, and I want to create a specific user group under which they will have an access to 3 projects with certain privileges. So I'll just create one group and I can really dump all the users under that group. So what I'm trying to say over here is that you do not have to define the access at the user level, but just it's going to get inherited from the group level. So if you look over here, these are all the user groups that we have as of now. So we have something called as EM admin, MicroStrategy groups, new, south, test group, and so on. When I click on the everyone, it's going to show me all the users which are present in my project. As of now, there are only 3 users which have been created under this particular project source. Now, let me say create new user. Whenever you create a new user, there are 3 things that you need to take care of: the user ID, the credentials, and third, the privileges. So if you look over here, I'm just going to give some login ID. Let's say ID. I'm going to give, this is my admin user, and I'm going to give some password. These are the credentials that the user needs to use it while accessing the environment. The main thing over here is the project access. So whenever I say a privileges, it will ask me to let the enable the user with all the privileges that they need to have it. If you really look over here under the project access, it shows you all the privileges which can be granted to a particular user. Either it's a web related, either it's a desktop related, it's an admin related. All the privileges are been listed over here. This is something where you can see, where you can even define via security rules. That is something I'm just going to discuss in next few minutes. But if you really look over here under a user, you will see all the privileges, and you need to make sure you grant the correct privileges as per the requirement. So if in case, now let's say I want this user to that can access only the Microstrategy web. So I really need to make sure that I give the corresponding privileges. Let's say I need to give as a web reporter, web analyst, and web professional. Even under individual all these folders, you have different privileges, whether the user can execute the reports from web or not, whether the user can create any objects in web or not, whether they can have the subtotal functionality enabled or not, whether they can perform the drilling from Microstrategy web report or not. So every individual privileges have been listed over here, and you need to make sure that you assign the required privileges under particular user. So if you look over here under the web reporter folder, whether the user can change the preferences or not. So these are all very small preferences which you really need to take care of. This, don't worry, this is all going to be listed at your project level, and you just need to follow that. So now let's say whether the user can perform the sorting under a report from Microstrategy web. So I do have a corresponding privilege over here, and if in case if it's not assigned, the user cannot perform sorting in Microstrategy web report. So either it's a web or it's a desktop, all the privileges have been listed over here. So even if you ask me from the desktop perspective, whether the user can create and use the schema objects, whether the user can create the public objects, and there are some functionalities or some privileges that you need to have or you may not need to have under the desktop. So all those privileges you will find over here, either it's in Microstrategy Architect or Microstrategy Developer. Even if I look from the administration perspective, you can clearly see over here there's Object Manager, Command Manager, Integrity Manager, Operations Manager. These are all administration components or the administration tools. Okay, so if in case you want to make some other user as an admin, you need to grant those users. I have a question over here which says, what are the additional privileges web professional can have? Now if you really look over here under the web professional, whether the user can execute the cubes or not, whether the users can create the intelligent cubes from Microstrategy web or not, whether they can have the edit drilling and the linking functionality. They can use the links, but if you're having a web professional, they can even edit the links. If you remember, we have something called as edit links under the when we create some within the documents or the dashboards. So even if you look over here, they can adjust the column widths, they can create the subscriptions for the others or not. So all those privileges have been present under the web professional. So they are all very self-explanatory. So you really need to make sure that these privileges has to be present for the user or not. So if you look at the last 3, I have something called as user filter editor, metric editor, and prompt editor. So these are something which can be created from Microstrategy. Okay, so now the question over here under which role the view SQL comes in. I really need to check on that because there are a lot of privileges, but yes, there is definitely something called as report details page. If you're looking from the MicroStrategy web, there's something called as report details page. Whereas if you're looking from the desktop, by default it does comes under the view SQL. So if I look over here from the developer or the architect perspective, I really need to check because there are n number of privileges which are present. And if I look as an architect, once again, no, Shobha, because if you say that it should be under the web professional, I'm really not so sure if whether you can see the SQL from the web or not. First, you have to execute the report, and then you just go to the tools, and there is an option called as report details page. And if you can see the report details page, under that you will see the SQL statement. So there is a difference over here under the SQL view that is present in the desktop versus the SQL view that is present under the MicroStrategy web. It will not show you as a one of the view mode under the MicroStrategy web. You really have to go to the report details page where it's going to show you the SQL. Okay, all right. So definitely once we start with the training, if in case you're still not able to see that, we can discuss during our regular calls. Okay, now let's say we even have something privileges with respect to the mobile. So whether the user can access the MicroStrategy through mobile or not. So all those privileges have been listed over here. Okay, this is one of the way through which you can grant the required privileges. What if I really don't want to set up for each users? Okay, there is one more thing that I can create a user group. But still, even at the user group level, for certain project, I need to have certain fixed privileges. As of now, I can see only one project. Now, let's say there are around 10 projects. So, like, okay, these are the set of privileges which should be common for 6 projects. In that case, this will not work. There, where the security roles comes into a picture. A security role is an object in MicroStrategy which defines all the privileges that you need to assign it to. So if you look over here, there is a drop down over here which says inherited access. If you click over here, these are all security roles. Each security roles has its predefined privileges which can be granted to the user. So if I click over here, let's say the managers plus inherited access, you will see that certain privileges will be added over here. So now let me just close this. I'm again going to create a new user. Directly go to the project access. As of now, no privileges. So if I just come over here and if I grant power users, you will see the checkboxes are getting enabled. So there are privileges which are getting assigned automatically, and that is based on the security roles. So I have defined a security roles over here, which is making sure that that the correct privilege is getting added. Okay, I can see one property over here which is under web analyst, and there is some property called as web report SQL. So if in case you want to see the SQL from MicroStrategy web, this is the property that has to be assigned. So this is just to answer Shobha's query that how I can see the SQL from MicroStrategy web. This is the privilege. Okay, perfect. So now we'll come back to the security role. So if you really look over here, I have assigned this user as a power user, and you can clearly see as a power user, this all privileges are getting added. If I select some other security role, now let's say I will say a normal user plus inherited. Now you can see they are not been assigned as an analyst anymore. They will just have an access to the common privilege security role. So every security roles has a certain other privileges. This will help you to assign a common fixed privileges across multiple projects. So instead of defining at this particular level which gets passed on to all the projects, I can even define project by project based on the security role. But the question over here, how you can define the security role? So you just close this. If you come back to the administration tab, under the configuration manager, we will see something called as security rules. These are all the security rules that you really saw under a drop down when we were creating the user. So I will say create new security rule, and it's just going to open up all the privileges with the checkboxes. So if I click on the privileges over here, you will see all the privileges that we did saw, which were present under the user editor. So you can clearly see these are all the same options which are available. You just check mark the required privileges and you save this as a security role. So now let's say I'll just show you a demo over here. Now let's say I want to create a security rule which is only specific to mobile. So I have made sure all the mobile privileges have been assigned. So I will say OK, and it just got saved with this name, so I'm going to rename this. I will say as mobile. Okay, so we have created one new security role with the name mobile. Now when I go and try to create a new user, I will say create new user. If I go to the project access, and now let's say if I select the mobile, yeah, here we go. So we do have a mobile security rule, and if I click over here, see as of now the mobile checkbox is disabled. Let me just open this. I do not have any privileges assigned for mobile, but as soon as I click on this privileges gets assigned. So whatever the privileges you have defined under the security role, it just gets passed on over here. So I don't want to define at the user level. So when I define at the user level, that gets passed on to all the projects. Over here, I'm just selecting a specific project. So even if tomorrow there are 10 projects, my mobile privileges is just passed on for the tutorial project and not rest all 9 projects. So security rule will allow you to define at the project level instead at the user level. So if I define at the user level, that will get passed on to the individual projects as well, the other projects as well. But this making sure that you define it only at a particular project level. So these are the few things that I really wanted to discuss, like how we can set up the user environment, how we can give the different privileges at a user level or at the user group level. Okay, there is one more question that I have came up over here, which says, do we have dependency in the security roles, and how will we quickly know? Is there a document that will help? Okay, so if in case you want to check whether the security role has been assigned or not, what you have to do is, in that case, you have to create a project documentation. Which all users has been assigned to which all roles, and there is something called as license administration. So if you go to the license manager, this is again something called as the admin task. So if I go to the license manager, okay, this will allow me to get all the details about the users and which all security roles or the user groups they have been assigned to. Okay, so it's one second. Yes, even about the privileges also, you can get it from the license administration. So it will show you all the things about the users. So once you go to the license manager, and there is something called as audit. This audit will make sure it lists down all the privileges what a certain user has it. So if I go to the intelligence server, I have, let's say for this particular project, I will authenticate myself. Okay, and has been established. So I'm just going to expand this. Okay, so over here I'm selecting every user. I want to make sure that it shows the user privileges in a report and include the LDAP users as well. So now when you start the report, what it's going to do is it's going to show me all the information, which all licenses have been used by the user, what are the privileges that we have, what is the security rules that have been assigned. So every information can be fetched from this particular tool. So it more describes about the licenses which have been used by the particular users or all the users in your project environment along with the privileges. So we will definitely see a one demo over here as well, which will make sure that how you can monitor the licenses, and you can even see as in one report what all privileges have been assigned. This is one way to do it. The second way to do it is to create a project documentation. You don't have to do anything much. Just click on tools, and 1 second. There is one more option that I want to show you. 1 second. Where we have the entire documentation for the administration. That is something that I need to really check on that. But yes, the license administration is the best way where you can get the entire report. So even if let's say you are working in an organization which has purchased only 10 architect license. So of course, if in case you onboard the 11th or more than 10, basically, it will start throwing you a notification which will give you a warning for 14 days. It says, okay, your license have been overused. You have to make sure that you adjust it, or a report will be sent out to the Microstrategy team. So you need, if in case you're not so sure which are the 11 users who has the corresponding accesses, so go to the license manager, create an audit report, and it will show you which all user is using what all licenses, and by that you can make sure that either the users have been removed, or if in case it's required, you might have to purchase the additional licenses. So that is also something that we are really going to discuss during our training. But yes, just to give you a heads up or an overview about the license manager. Okay, all right. Just before we wrap up today's call, I want to also show you a demo on something called as command manager. No problem, Sandhya. Okay, so I also wanted to show you a demo on the command manager. As of now, whatever the user I have created, it's a manual. Okay, I went to the project source, I went to the user manager, and I created the individual users. What if I have to create around like thousands of users? I really have to sit back over here. Every time I just can't click on saying new user and create the users. Instead, I can come up with some scripts. These scripts are the command manager scripts, which will allow me to create end users, thousands and thousands of users within few seconds. So in order to access the command manager, it's a separate tool. So you just go to the command manager. Okay. We'll just wait over here. It will just take some time to open it up. So the command manager is an administration component through which you can write various scripts and which will perform the corresponding activities. So I can create a report, I can create the attributes, I can create the facts, I can create the users. All the activities can be performed within the command manager by writing some scripts. And over here, you do not have to remember the scripts. The command manager comes up with some predefined auto lines, and which you just have to follow this outlines, which you just have to follow those outlines and make sure that the corresponding activity has been done. So I'm just going to connect to my project source. I will say OK. And if you look over here, this is the command manager script. So you can clearly see a connection has been established. And the best part, as I said, says something called as outline. You click on the insert outline over here, and you can see these are all scripts which comes along with the command manager, and that's the best part. You don't have to remember. So now let's say I need to create a user. So I'll go to the user outlines, and you can see if in case I want to add the user, I'll just click over here, and this is the script that you need to make sure. I can just I will just copy one script from here. Let's say I want to add this thing, so I'll copy, or I can directly say insert. So instead of that, what I'm going to do is I'll just cancel this, and I can say this. So if you look over here, this is the new user that I'm trying to create within my environment. So this is a script. I'm not going to discuss much on the script, but this is just I'm showing you. If in case I have around like 10,000 customers that or 10,000 user which I need to onboard in my project, I can just copy the script. So I will make sure that the username's password and the full name has been modified. And once I execute the scripts, first I will check the syntax. The syntax is correct. And once I execute the script, this script will be executed in my environment, and you can see that the user has been created successfully. So if I go and check over here, I'll just refresh this, and you will see that a new user has been created successfully. So if you really look over here, my users have been created just within few seconds. And if there are around like 10,000 users that has to be onboarded, I can write a script over here. All the 10,000 users will be onboarded within few seconds. So there are various, a smart ways that you can definitely do it within the MicroStrategy to perform the certain administration activities. So this is just for a demo, like how we can access the command manager to perform certain activity. But don't worry, we're going to take it as a one by one, where we started from the scratch. We'll set up the environment, we'll set up the users, and we're also going to discuss all the admin components that I have listed under the training content. So okay, so there is a question over here. When do we use the connectionless? The connectionless is something where you just want to see some outline scripts. It is not getting connected to your MicroStrategy project. So if I disconnect over here, okay, I don't want to save this. I've disconnected from the environment, okay, and when I try to connect it back, and if I say connectionless session, that means you're not trying to getting a connection to your project source or a 3-tier environment. You can just say okay, and if I just want to see some scripts over here, there is no connection. You can see over here it's not connected. So I just want to see the script outlines, and that's the only reason it's a connectionless. Connectionless means it is not connected to your iServer. That's it. So even if you execute the scripts, it's not going to make sense because it will not be updated to your MicroStrategy. Does it answer your query? Yes, that's correct. That's correct. Just to check the syntax and see how what are the things that you can do from the command manager. That's it. Okay. So all right, no problem. So this is all that I have for today. I've just given you an overview. What are the things that can be done from the MicroStrategy administration? For today, I have just focused on the user setup, from where you can set up all the user environment. We have it from the MicroStrategy desktop. We can even do it from the command manager and so on. So for today, this is all that I have from the demo perspective. But yes, once we start with the actual training, trust me, we're going to start it from the scratch. We're going to still see how we can set up the architecture. Then I'm going to discuss everything about the user manager, security roles, filters, clusters, and all the administration components that we do have in MicroStrategy. Okay, so before we sign off, any question, any query, or anything that you want to discuss, please let me know. Okay, there's one question over here. Which scripting language the command manager uses? There is nothing called as a Java or something. At the back end, yes, it could be a Java or a .NET, that depends. But yes, the scripting line, the outline that we are using is more kind of a self-explanatory, like what is the exact thing that you want to do within the environment. But yes, at the back end, the entire tool, of course, I would say not only about the scripting language, but the entire tool is based on some scripting language. Okay, so the backend, what MicroStrategy does is whatever the command you execute, that gets converted into some code which is understandable by MicroStrategy, and corresponding to that, the users are being created or whatever the activity you want to perform. Is it okay, Sandhya? All right, perfect. Anything else, any question, any query, please let me know. No? All right. So by this, we'll just stop over here. And before I sign off, I really wanted to thank you, all of you. Thanks a lot for joining for the administration demo, and once we start it off, we're gonna see each and everything in detail along with the practical implementation. So once again, thank you so much, and hope to see you in the administration training. Thank you. Bye bye.